I think one of the things about Ishtiaq is he's just been here forever. He's got that long-term perspective. There's that iron in there of a constant loyalty to his community, to the wider good, to the city. He calls stuff out. Doesn't matter who they are, and he's done it, to me as well as with me. He'll have that conversation. He may wait a little bit, he may do it not when you exactly expect it. He'll come in there and he'll say it as it is when it needs to be said to the right person, and he's not afraid of that.
I first met Ishtiaq when I was a student. At the time, I didn't really know much about him, but his reputation had preceded itself as somebody that was willing to help, somebody that was an enabler, really. And I remember just going for a meeting and asking to see him. The thing that really struck me, his willingness to help and his generosity. In all my years in community development, he's one of the few people I've come across that thinks to the depths that he does, but also is able to execute and deliver those plans. Not only does he challenge his own community in doing so, he is also very good at doing that in a very balanced way, challenging external communities. And I've seen that many times in his work in race equality, in interfaith. Ishtiaq has led on many difficult community issues, whether that was at the time when he was a racial equality director for Bradford Council, whether it was the Bradford riots, the Salman Rushdie affair, and even within the faith spectrum, whether it was the establishment of the Council for Mosques. Ishtiaq arrived in the UK in the late 60s. From Pakistan to the UK, he was around 11 years old.
To land in Bradford in those days, when it was really tough, nobody else is going to look out for you, and the laws weren't there, it was all very vulnerable. There are various people who came out of that furnace.
Since I met him, whenever I need his advice, or I always go through him, I know he's going to come up with the good advice. Actually, we've noticed that he's good at putting pen to paper. He's very good at it. And he brought a lot of ideas like fundings, etc. When the earthquake happened in Pakistan, I think it's 2008 or something like that. I was president at that time of the Council for Mosques. We raised over £120,000 from the masajid only. So me, Ishtiaq, Salim Bhai, we traveled from here to Karachi to, the very remote areas of because he even took me to his own house. Which had no lights, anything. But he looked after me very well. And that was a very good memory.
I don't think he ever learned to drive. Maybe he did learn to drive, but he chose not to drive. I'm not sure. But still, he's managed his life very well, without that. We met over 30 years ago when we were both at college. Inequalities were a lot more overt, and we as young people, as activists, obviously lived and breathed that tackling inequalities. It's an agenda that continues, and I think is with him, 24/7. I'm sure that even after, he retires, he will continue to work on the agenda.
So it's nearly 40 years now, and he still looks young, just the same as before. He's not changed. I've changed. I've lost all my hair. I look old, grey, but he looks the same. I think he's got a secret that he's not telling people. We were pioneers because at that time we had lots of obstacles to overcome. Most of the time we were working on a shoestring budget. He could have had better jobs, bigger jobs, but he decided to stay in Bradford to commit to local people. The foundations were not even ready for people like Ishtiaq and myself. So it took a long time to do that. There was a need to start building bridges after that devastating first riots. And an organization was created to liaise with the police, and it was called Minority Police Liaison Committee. We were there and we wrote the constitution for that organization, which carried on for many years. And it was dependent upon the communities working together and the police to hold them to account. That was a very significant first start to build bridges with the crime and disorder, especially with the police in Bradford.
A lot of buildings been burned and a lot of people been injured, and at that time Ishtiaq and worked very hard with the police, with the community. End of the day, we are one people. If I have a problem, he understand easily. If he have a problem, I understand easily. And he done 42 years work.
The biggest fight was in terms of jobs and employment, because that is where the cutting edge discrimination took place. There were not many professionals. Those who were qualified were subjected to lack of promotional opportunities. It was just a battle all the way through for young people who were coming up at that time. We were talking about first, second generation, and they were just working hard in buses, in taxis, in utilities, where there was very little opportunity to progress. And as the economic decline in terms of closure of the textile mills and the mills that were working, the foundries, unemployment became a big issue. There were the minorities were the first to be made redundant and sacked. And that is where the challenges were.
My full name is Dorcas Olayemi Amusan Fagbonu, MBA. I met Ishtiaq in the 90s in Bradford as I was a board member of Racial Equality Council. If not Ishtiaq Ahmed, Peacemaker International will not be here today. The organization started in 1999 with support from Ishtiaq. We provide family support. We work with children and young people, elderly people, and people with disabilities. He mentored us and directed us, and look at us today. We did not fail. He educated us, supported us, and opened our eyes to so many things about community-based projects. He put our feet on a solid ground. He loves helping people. Ishtiaq loved to help people, and we can never forget the role he played in the life of Peacemaker. Ishtiaq Ahmed is a leader, is a community champion, is a developer, and he is an innovator, initiator, is a father to many of us. God created him to be passionate and to be ready to support anybody. We love him. God bless you, Ishtiaq Ahmed.
He is a man who never boasts, who never brags about what he does for the community. He's like me, just do things and forget. I served on Bradford Council for 22 years. I was the first Asian Lord Mayor elected. I always thought that he was very intelligent, very concerned with the community issues. We had these common interests which I think brought us together.
At one time, I think three people with Ishtiaq in the middle appeared in the T&A as three musketeers. He had this passion, this devotion to this kind of work. There were very sensitive issues like burning of the book. I was there, standing, watching the burning of the book. Now he continued his involvement in race relations in a more central sort of way. It is difficult to provoke him to lose his temper. He is a master of his words.
When you seek an answer or when you want to know something, he answers in a very diplomatic way. He makes sure that the person who we're referring to doesn't get offended, and he makes sure that the person who's asking questions doesn't get offended.
I've questioned Ishtiaq a number of times on actually who were your mentors, who were your role models, who gave you the time. And I know in doing so, he has a lot of regard for people like Muhammad Ajib and Sher Azam, who were early activists in race equality with him.
I've always seen him when he was very young. He's brought up in Bradford, and I think one of the young people at that time who was involved in the community work. I think his contribution was tremendous in the Council for Mosque, and still is. Whichever project he has worked, his dedication is there. He worked it from the bottom of his heart.
We've grown up and grown old together. While we were in school, we heard that there was the UK Islamic Mission who were providing some lessons about Islam in different schools. So we got a group of boys together, so that I think once a week, probably it was a Wednesday, and we used to have a 40 or 45-minute lesson. And then from there, things developed. We started a group known as the Islamic Youth Movement. So that continued more or less until I left England in 1983. And then I think after that it changed into Young Muslims and other organizations, and now I think it's known as the Islamic Society. But we were the ones who actually started it off from Bradford. Ishtiaq had no sort of materialistic objectives in life. He wasn't the type who would say, well, oh, I need to do this, I need to build up a business, or I need to increase my income. He was not concerned about material things at all. At time of floods, for example, or any other disaster in Pakistan, we would hold sponsored walks, raise money, and try to help the victims there. Even at the time of the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, we made a collection even then for people who were suffering and the refugees who had been compelled to come over and seek shelter in Pakistan. And all this was being done by this group with Ishtiaq and some other friends.
We did miss that time with him because he was always working, he had projects abroad. But when he did come back, he spent time by taking us abroad. We spent a lot of time in Pakistan. We used to go out there, spend time with family. And my dad's always said, money's there, it comes and goes, but that memories with your family is what you don't forget. I think my personality follows my dad because my work is not that much different to my dad. My dad works for community. I do care work. I think that's what's made me go down that route, because I look at him thinking he does so much for everyone. Why shouldn't I? So I think that's what made me go into NHS as well. One thing I've never told my dad that I'm really proud of him, what he's done for us. And I know everybody has their ups and downs, but the way he's brought us up, the way he's done everything for us, I'm really proud, and thank you for everything he's done for us. Not only for me, but for his grandkids as well. I get emotional now. He's been a father figure to us, but he's been a father figure to a lot of people. And that, I think it takes a strong person to do that.
Don't overestimate what you can do in a short term, but don't underestimate what you can do in the long term. And actually, it's only now when you look back and you see where Bradford is in terms of where Bradford was. It's not that there aren't any problems anymore, but I dread to think what it would have been like without Ishtiaq and people like him. I joke to him sometimes, I call him my Ustad. And I remember sometimes just having to go to Ishtiaq and just say, how should we deal with this? How can we make sure that the right people are involved?
He is an institution and an icon as far as Bradford is concerned. So when you talk about the fight for justice, Ishtiaq Ahmed is at the very forefront.
Ishtiaq, is worked for very hard for not only Muslim community, he worked for whole the communities. And if we have a problem, we go to him.
Our association goes back to at least 40 years, and I'm proud to be associated with that kind of person. He is a man of very high integrity.
He has worked not only in Bradford, he traveled, but wherever he went, he made the difference.
And Ishtiaq, I know, plans to spend more time in Pakistan after his retirement. And I'm sure even in Pakistan, he will not live a fully retired life. He'll get involved in some form of social work, whether it be education or whatever. He'll not sit idle at all.
I think one of the very real lessons that he's taught me is, always push the boundary, always know what your moral compass is. And as long as you're aware of that, you might not be liked, but you certainly will be respected. And I would hope a lot of what he has taught me is reflected in the types of projects that I take up, whether that's the Muslim Women in Prison project, whether that's been other very difficult and hard issues. And I think at the heart of it all, what he has taught is don't take no for an answer.